So we talked about smooth blending, and now we're going to talk a little bit about hatching and cross-hatching. Hatching and cross-hatching is really how we get shades with pen and ink, but it's actually useful for your pencil as well. So I'll use a pen here. When I'm doing hatching, that's lines. That's just lines like this. But there we go. If I'm shading with a pen, I can't really change the pressure. So instead, I have to change how close together my lines are. So if I want it to be darker, I put my lines close together. And if I want it to be lighter, I put my lines further apart. Hatching, I'm not such a big fan of by itself, but I do really love cross-hatching. So cross-hatching is just like it sounds, hatching that you cross the lines. And you can cross as many times as you want. Now this is a really good way to show texture if you're shading with pencil. So let's say I'm going to do a cone. With my light source coming from this way. I can take my pencils. This way I don't have to change my pencils so often. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to still follow the shape of the cone. So I'm using a 2H. I'm actually using a pretty light pencil. And then I can go in and start adding some cross-hatching. So I got some pretty decent value pretty quickly just by using one light pencil and the cross-hatching technique. When you want it to be lighter, you keep your lines further apart. When you want it to be darker, you put your lines closer together. And then the same goes if I was going to use a pen. So I'm going to start by doing the lines that are kind of following the shape of the cone. So this is just hatching because it's all going the same direction. But then I can start adding in so we can get some nice value. And I have some microns, which you honestly should have brought too for school supplies. But I also have dippy pens that you can use to do this as well. In addition to cross-hatching and hatching, you can do scumbling. So scumbling is, I call it a controlled scribble. I really like to kind of just make a mark and then change a direction every couple of seconds. Actually, it's not even a second, I suppose. So if you're doing scumbling, you're going to put it tighter like this if you want it to be darker, and then it can get lighter by making it looser. You're still changing directions. This is not scumbling. This is scumbling. So if I were scumbling on this guy, I'm going to start down here. kind of like that. So we'll label this crosshatching. This is scumbling with a C. And then lastly, the one that I think looks the coolest, but is the most tedious and time consuming, is stippling. And that's just a bunch of little dots. You have to be careful when you're doing stippling not to get a bunch of little C's, because then that is more scumbling than anything. So I'm going to make a tiny little cone here to do the stippling on. I have a student who graduated last year who was really good at stippling, and he went out and he bought a stippling pen, which you can get on Amazon for like $40, but it would do like 40 dots per minute or something. It was crazy. No, it had to be more than that. It'd do like 100 dots per minute, because I'm probably doing about 70 here. But it felt really cool. It would like vibrate in your hand. The longer you hung out in one area, the darker it would get. So this one here is stippling. So what I want you to do with the rest of this period is I want you to kind of experiment with different shapes. So try a sphere, try a cube, try an apple. Experiment with the different types of shading and line making, and you can use a pencil or a pen. This does not do so well with charcoal because charcoal is really blendy.